I had headphones on and I was playing a game and she comes in and then I get up. What I felt, time went by so fast and it was a half an hour. Why wasn't I there for you and to support you during this hard time? For us, for you, for us as a family, for us as a whole family, our extended families, and the unknowns.
Is there something else behind him not showing up that I don't know about? You know, it just makes you kind of insecure about what's behind this.
Right.
Why is he not showing up like he usually would?
Yeah.
Take a girl and a guy, and they fall madly in love and form a family. Sprinkle in some counseling degrees and a doctorate, a dream of transforming relationships as we know it. And 20 years later, we give you power couple Dr. Ray and Jean Kedkodian. And this is their podcast, Couples Synergy.
Welcome back to another episode of Couples Synergy with Dr. Ray and Jean. I'm Dr. Ray.
And I'm Jean, and this is our podcast about love, marriage, and relationships.
Check us out online at couplessynergy.com and be sure to subscribe to our podcast or send us any suggestions on topics you'd like to hear more about. And now on to Couples Synergy, an in-depth look at love, marriage, and relationships, where we bring you our experiences with working with thousands of couples for over 15 years.
You know, every day we get to hear intimate details about a couple's celebrations, disappointments, and everyday challenges. We've often wished these stories were shared because we know we are more similar than different. And so we've created not only an avenue where you can hear about people's intimate lives, but an atmosphere where people come over to our home pub, pour a drink, and share their stories.
People like today's guests, Josh and Stephanie. Thank you so much for being on the podcast today.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
We are going to really get in depth in your story, and I am just excited to see kind of what comes out of this story today. Before we do that, how old are you guys? What do you do for a living? And tell us something interesting that most people don't know about you.
Well, I'm 36 and I work for a technology company. Which
You're actually 35, by the way.
35. See? Well, okay. So 35.
It gets harder when you get older.
I was just thinking about what you guys said, that we are number 36.
Oh, yeah, you're a 36 couple.
I was like, that was stuck in my head. So yeah, I'm 35. I work for a technology company. I work a lot with executives and work to build sort of relationships, right? And so my job is more of like the relationship building within a marketing and technology company. So over the years, you know, I started off as a graphic designer. Formal background is actually in computer graphics and animation. And if I actually had to go back and do that today, that'd be quite a bit of a challenge.
Things have changed.
Oh, yeah. Things have changed a lot. So getting more into the business side of things. Yeah, just excited to really explore this endeavor with you guys.
Very cool. What's something interesting that most people don't know?
Something interesting. Well, maybe not a lot of people know this, but I do a lot of woodworking.
Oh.
I build a lot of things, tinker a lot with my hands. I actually made a knife a couple weeks ago.
Oh.
Like forging?
It was Forged in Fire is one of my favorite shows.
Cool.
Right? So she really likes to watch a lot of TV, but I'm not really a big TV person. So there's one show. It's like Forged in Fire. Right?
Yeah.
So Stephanie got me a man crate.
A man
crate.
Like a do-it-yourself.
Yeah. So it came with the knife blank and you had to construct the handle. So it was perfect. Got me really back into it because I've just been so busy with work lately that it was so nice and so much fun to build this knife. Yeah.
What about you, Stephanie?
What about me? So I'm also 35 and I'm a licensed social worker. I've worked in senior healthcare for about 10 years. Most of my career has been in senior living, and I've been in this kind of sales and marketing role for most of it. I also worked in hospice, and I am soon going back to hospice as a social worker. So I'm really excited about that.
Kudos to you.
Yeah, that's great work.
It's tough, but it's rewarding.
Yeah.
So.
Everyone I know that has gone through hospice is like, I couldn't have done it without those people.
Yeah.
Really good work.
And truthfully, that's why I got into it. I had family experiences and I was like, wow, if these people can make a difference in these moments,
right?
If I could do that for someone, that's all I want. So I'm really excited about that.
That's awesome.
Something not a lot of people know. well, he kind of alluded to it, but I'm a reality television junkie.
Reality TV.
Housewives of anything.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow.
it's bad. Bravo, like you name it, I watch it.
Do you know how many times people think my last name is Kardashian?
I could bet.
All the time.
I bet.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
that's one I actually don't watch, though.
Okay.
They annoy me. So
Yeah.
I will say I do have some standards.
Can you guys tell us the story of how you met?
So this is a funny story. For years, we told people that we met at Starbucks randomly one cold night. We actually met online. We met on Match.com years ago before like online dating was even a thing.
Oh,
What
you guys
year
are
was
like
it?
a feather in the cap.
2008.
Yeah, 2008.
Okay.
Yeah.
How long were each of you on that platform before you met?
Ooh, I was probably like 6 months on there
Okay.
at that point.
I was only a couple.
Yeah.
Had you met other people?
Yeah. I
Couple
probably got.
disaster dates?
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely like one of those ones where you can't wait to get out.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Quite a few of those, but nothing that was really of substantial, like substance,
Like scary.
and even in a conversation. Right.
So 2008, you guys were 24.
Four.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's really young to back then to do that now. I think
Yeah.
most people are on them now, but
Yeah, everyone's got an app or something on their
Yeah.
phone, if they're single. And
I think the average age on Match right now is like 55.
yeah.
Yeah.
wow.
How come you guys chose that path?
I think I was at a point in my life where I was just having fun. I wasn't looking for anything serious. I had been in a serious relationship previously that ended really badly. And I was at the point where I was over that, but I also didn't want anything serious. So I was just like, I go to the bars with my buddies. There's really no one else new. There's no one that I want to meet there. So let's see what this is all about.
Okay.
Yeah. For me, meeting people, like when I went to school, I went to DePaul.
Mhm.
So I was in the city and I was out at bars all the time. And when I was back at home after school, I was like, I don't really want to meet somebody at a bar.
Right.
I'm so used to going to a bar. I want to actually be able to hear the conversation. And so I was looking for more engaging relationships or engaging just fun dating rather than going to a bar to meet somebody.
Was that common for your friends as well, or were they still in that party scene?
No, I think for me, a lot of my friends that after school was people that had moved away to college towns. So they weren't really part of a big city. They were more of a rural area. So for them, they were wanting to go right back to the city. And I was like, no, I've kind of done with that. I've had enough of the city for 10 years and kind of decided to, for me.
Yeah.
What? I'm sorry. Go
Oh,
ahead.
I was just going to say, yeah, I mean, my friends, we all, were party girls. We went out and had fun. And it's funny, I say that we told people we met at Starbucks because there was like a stigma associated with meeting someone online at that point.
Yeah.
So we even lied to friends because they would have been like, what?
Right.
So it was an interesting time, I think.
You guys were trendsetters.
Yeah.
Right?
I was going to ask you, why do you guys say that you've met at Starbucks, right? Do you still do that now, today?
I've caught myself doing it all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Every once in a while, but don't really run across a bunch of people that haven't really known us at this point.
Yeah.
We still meet a lot of new people, but it doesn't really come up in those types of conversations. I always say now I don't even say we meet at Starbucks, but we did actually meet physically for the first time.
First date was
at a Starbucks. So our first date was a Starbucks.
Technically, right.
Technically.
So we weren't totally lying.
Right.
Do you guys remember what your profile was like or what you were seeking back then?
It's a good question. I mean, like I said, I think I was just like, let's see what this is all about.
So you were like, I'm
fun.
looking for a serious relationship.
No, I was at the point where I was finally totally good being single. I was over a previous relationship. And I was like, let's just see what this is. Like, I got nothing to lose.
Going fishing.
Yep, exactly. Let's have some fun.
Yeah. And I think, for me, it was definitely more what I felt like was mature for that age. Like, definitely more about what I'm into for work and some hobbies rather than like go out to the bars and things like that. But I can think about the pictures that I had on there and those awesome selfies that I took at 24 years old.
I still have some of them saved on my computer.
Wow.
I'm not even going to lie.
How did you guys choose your pictures. That's cool.
Boy.
People took selfies back then with a flip phone.
Yeah,
or
but you
Yeah, it was a
couldn't see
flip
it.
phone. It was a flip phone, or it was like a little Casio P90 power shot
my
camera.
God.
Yeah,
that you were uploading with the memory
You guys
card.
are real trendsetters.
I just remember like choosing photos and stuff. It was like, you have to have a variety, right? Like you have to show different sides of yourself. Like one with you, like out with your buddies and like having a good time. But then one of you like at home with your dog. Like, you know what I mean? Like you need to show like, you know, you want to like attract the widest variety of people, not just like the party guys and things like that. So
This
I remember
is me
thinking
mountain
that.
biking.
Right. Look, I'm outdoorsy.
And I think it's so interesting because the way I think about it and the way it's sort of stereotyped today, it's much different mindset as from at least for what I feel like, right? It's going into it. Some of these dating sites are advertised like that, but those are the ones that you hear about, right? You don't really hear about Match.com anymore.
Oh,
right.
Match.com
Like
is really the leading one.
And I don't hear about them anymore, probably because they've been around now for so long. People just knew who they are.
You're not our first couple that we've interviewed that meant that way.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Actually, lots.
And I don't even remember who initiated it.
You
first.
did. I remember.
What did he wave? How was that?
No, so this is silly, but at one point
good.
I decided to stop. I didn't want to pay for it anymore because I was like, I don't even really care if anything comes of this. So I actually changed my like screen name on there to what my AOL Instant Messenger name was. Like we're bringing it way back.
Wow.
Yeah.
And he figured it out that that's what it was.
He is a tech guy.
So, right.
Yeah.
I found my Prince Charming. He sent me like a random IM and was like, hey, saw you on Match. You know, I'm from Highland Park. I lived in Northbrook at the time. So it was like we were close. And
Oh, he reached out not even through Match.
yeah,
he went through
Instant
AOL.
Messenger.
Yeah.
He read
Wow.
between the lines. It was good.
He did some research.
Smooth moves.
Yep. Well,
I think we'd call that stalking these days.
probably.
So what made you do that?
You know, it was definitely a physical attraction. At first, that was what grabbed, because you see all these different profiles, right?
Mhm.
So you see a location, you see a picture. So I clicked on the picture and I saw like what she was saying. She had that was a type of profile that you had. You had the different types of shots of what's going on in your life. But
She looked interesting.
it was
I knew what I was doing.
it was that we were at least geographically near each other, which was probably another reason to start with. Like I'm just reading through the profile, right?
Sure.
And so just her, and I picked up on animals, and I'm a big animal lover. I was a big animal lover at that time, still am. And
you guys
so,
are.
yeah. And so it was just, okay, let's try this, right? You were only a couple of dates into Match for me. I was on it for 6 months, but wasn't finding anybody, right? And so it was, just lucky, I guess.
Yes, he was.
So you get this message
Mhm.
and
I was like, all right, is this another tool? You know, because you get a lot of them, especially as a female on these sites. And I'm sure it's still true today. But there was
You get
just
a lot
something
more today.
I can only imagine.
Yeah, we've heard.
Yeah, I'm very grateful to be where I am. But it was something about his energy. I could just tell, like, we vibed as far as, like, I'm a really, enthusiastic and, like, excitable person. And he was giving that off, too. And that was really attractive to me because I'm silly and goofy. And I need someone who can also be silly and goofy and not judge me and, pull the, card. And he right away just showed me his personality, that side of it. And I was like, okay, I think I like this one.
so then how does that progress? Like you get the instant message. How long between that and actually meeting, and what happens in between?
I think it was a couple of weeks.
It was because we
texting.
were texting, we were talking on the phone. I mean, I remember, I don't even think I had met you yet, and I was snowboarding, and I was like, yeah. So I went snowboarding by myself on just a random Saturday, and I call her afterwards. I'm like, oh, you'll never guess. I fell and everything flew off my head, and my gloves flew off, and she was like, you're ridiculous. You are ridiculous. Like, you did this by yourself, and that was like we started having conversations that weren't just, hey, how was your day?
Mhm.
Started getting into
What's
it
your
more.
sign?
Yeah. It was
Just learning more about each other.
Yeah.
Right? Just
Getting the
depth.
vibe, you
Sure.
know, like
and it was like just sharing, hey, because we were interacting on the computer, we were getting to know each other. So you kind of wanted to get to know about somebody. It was just, hey, I'm thinking about you and how's it going? By the way, just got done falling and losing everything on my head.
And then I think within a couple of weeks, because we lived 10 minutes away from each other.
Oh, wow.
We had no idea.
Mhm.
Wow.
And so we were like, okay, this is dumb. Like, why are we not meeting? So I'll always remember it was like negative 20 degrees. It was so cold outside. And that was the day that we said,
What, do you live in Chicago?
Yeah. What?
It just happens to be an 8-inch snowfall today
Right. No
at
big
the
deal.
end of April.
Yeah. No big deal.
Spring. Mm.
Chicago style.
Here. Kind of.
So
again.
we decided to meet at a Starbucks that was kind of like halfway in between both of our homes. And I remember I was living at home at the time and I was like, oh, I got to go get dog food. Like the dogs are low on food, aren't they, Mom? And my mom's like, oh, yeah, they are. So
Your clandestine life.
Yeah, I know, right? I was a ninja. So I snuck out of the house and went and met him. And we ended up sitting and talking at Starbucks till they kicked us out. We met at like 7:00
Wow.
at night.
Yeah.
And that's like 11 or something.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And we're like,
it was-
we've been closed for like a half an hour, but you know,
Like, you guys gotta go.
gotta go now.
You guys
like,
gotta
we want to
go.
go home.
Yeah.
All the chairs are up on
Yeah.
the table.
And meanwhile, I had like 20 missed calls from my mother because she was like, you left 3 hours ago for dog food. Like, what happened? But I just remember it was an instant connection. We just had so much to talk about. It was just, I literally went home and I told my mom that I had met him, but not how we had originally met. I said I went into Starbucks and I bumped into this guy and we started talking. And that night I was like, I feel like I met the man I'm going to marry, which was, I would have never said that.
We
previously.
actually hear that quite a bit.
Yeah,
So strange to me.
Yeah.
that is huge.
Yeah.
We hear that phrase from a lot of couples.
A lot of couples.
That got married and they were like, I just knew when I
Mhm.
met them. Yeah.
And we hear it from the divorced ones too, that I shouldn't have done it.
Right.
Yeah.
I believe
and,
it.
and it was it was so interesting too, because we were talking weeks leading up to actually meeting. And then when we get there, it was like we were just exploring things that felt so natural to just talk about.
So you didn't walk in and think, this is a different person than the other person I was talking to before I met you.
No.
I mean, there was definitely a lot of anxiety, right? And you get that, like, your heart's racing, like, oh my God.
Who got there first?
Yeah. I believe I was there first. and
I
you
don't
walked
remember.
In. No,
The
yeah,
waiting-
you walked in
the
from
waiting.
the south door. For sure you did. I remember.
Well, you so did.
Was the conversations you guys were having on the phone, were they in-depth conversations? Like, what do you want out of life? And what are you looking for in a partner?
They were at some point. I truly don't remember. I think it was earlier on. I mean, I know for me, one thing that I think really drew us together on that deeper level is we had both experienced loss of our fathers.
Oh.
And so that was something that I had never seen and had or experienced in another person.
What age were each of you when that happened?
I was 7.
When I was 20.
Okay.
So
So for
totally
being
different
24 and both,
stories.
yeah.
yeah, very different ways, very different stories, but still a loss.
Mhm.
And to this day, I think that was a big connector for us because we got to have these conversations that you could never have with someone else.
Mhm.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah. Other kids are like going to brownies. You're
Right.
at a funeral.
Exactly.
Yep.
Wow.
And we just connected. I mean, instantly on that was definitely a bonding portion of our
Mhm.
really, I think, how we really got connected.
hmm
Yeah.
How did your dad's passing change your guys' lives?
Oh boy. So for me, it was the best semester I had in college because it was right after winter break and I just was heads down. I didn't want to think about it. And so it was really traumatic for me.
Mhm.
And it was at a point in my life where I was becoming what I felt like was an adult at 20. And so didn't have somebody to really talk to.
Yeah.
So it was a challenge. It was
Yeah.
a challenge.
So you just distracted yourself with school and just kind of, put your nose into the book.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did it make you kind of grow up really fast?
Grew up overnight.
Yeah. I mean, the fact that you guys were 24 on Match back in the day when most 24-year-olds are just bar hopping.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. I mean, you kind of be forced into, how am I going to do all of this right now at 20 years old? How am I going to, like, advice, right?
Mhm.
And just all gone in an instant. So yeah, it really kind of made me focus on my education and really kind of focus on what career I didn't know I was going to have.
Right.
Yeah.
And at 7, I mean,
It was a totally different experience.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't think
totally.
I could even really comprehend what had happened. And then I look at it now and, part of me is like, well, was my process easier because I didn't really understand it? I don't know. But, I think that always stays with you. It's going to affect you for the rest
Sure.
of your life. Being a child and not having your father and being at an age where you don't have a ton of memories anymore, that's a challenge. But, there's a lot of what ifs. What would life be like if he were here? Would things be different? Would I be where I am now? Like, I don't know. But I'm also in the headspace that you can't think like that either. Like, things happen for a reason, as cliche as that is. And I hate that saying, but I love that saying at the same time. I think that things happen in your life to bring you to a certain point. So I don't know. That's just kind of how I see it. It's, like I said, very different experience from him because he was at an age where it really affected him on many levels.
Right.
Sure.
And I didn't have all of that because
It's a different
of my
place
age.
in life.
Yeah,
Yeah.
completely.
Right? Yeah.
It is, but you don't really run into a lot of people at 24 years old that have lost their parents. So it was like
Right.
that connection there was huge for
It was
us.
relatable.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
absolutely.
Right.
I mean,
Right.
even though I didn't have that at a younger age, we still are missing a parent and things that we just can't even ask them.
I imagine your wedding was pretty significant for both of you guys.
Yes.
But before we get to that,
Yeah.
so you guys are at Starbucks
Huh?
and you go from there
Yep.
Yes.
to being in a relationship. Like, how does that happen?
Wow. Well,
We did not. We saw each other every night for 2.5 weeks after our first initial meeting.
Oh,
The
were you
next,
both living at your parents' house?
Yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay.
With any siblings or just your mom's?
for me, it was just my mom and I at that point.
I have a sister who's 12 years younger. So
Okay.
she was
Okay.
small at that point. So yeah, we saw each other. We hung out every night. And I think we were like officially in a relationship 2.5 or 3 weeks after we met.
Yeah.
We were just both like, I don't want to see anyone else. Do you?
No.
Nope. Like,
No.
okay.
It was a conversation.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Great.
It was.
So it's an official.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
I made him ask, like, well, you have to ask me if you want me to be your girlfriend.
That actually is really awesome. They talk about this concept of sliding versus deciding.
hmm
Mhm.
And a lot of couples today, they just sort of,
Yeah.
oh, we're hanging
Yeah.
out.
Right.
My lease is, up in May, so
Yeah.
let's just
I
move in
mean,
together.
We could find a place.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
So that's cool.
Yeah.
What was it about the other person that you fell in love with?
She just flips her hair and looks
There's-
at him. That was funny.
What you got?
That was good.
I mean, there are a plethora of reasons why. I think her drive in all aspects of life was the number one thing that attracted me to her emotionally. We both had passions in our lives for all different things, for things just going out and having fun, going down to the south side of the city, like for the St. Patrick's Day parade,
The
right?
South Side?
The south side.
When they actually had
The good
Oh.
parade. We'd just be like, Thursday afternoon, hey, what do we want to do this weekend, right? And so it was just that passion and that drive to just explore and just live life to the fullest together. That was something that I never really found before. A lot of just having fun with life.
And I'll say the same. It was really just kind of like, your partner in crime, right?
Mm.
Like, I'd be like, do you want to make furry pants? And he'd be like, yes. And I'm like, this is awesome. But there was another side to him too that was really soft. And after his father died, he really became like almost the caregiver for his mother. His mother had been pretty dependent on his father, and he really took the man of the house role. And seeing that and like how gentle he was with her and how much he really was invested in making sure she was okay was really attractive to me, because, how they treat their mom, that's
Right.
a sign,
Mhm.
right?
Right.
And then he also had qualities that I wasn't so great at, like patience. Not so good with patience. I've built on that now, but he was super patient. He would,
Hey, honey, do you want to drive to the city? Do you want to drive or do you want me to drive?
You're driving.
Patience.
Yeah.
I need a lot of patience.
Yes.
Chicago driving.
Yes.
Right.
So I think it was a big variety of stuff. It was the fun we had, but it was the things that I knew he had, I didn't. And then just this other side that I don't think a lot of other people got to see in him.
Who said I love you first?
I did.
That one.
I did.
Pointing at him.
I did.
And it was drunk at the South Side Parade
Yes,
No.
it was.
while wearing furry pants.
Yeah.
For,
So I
we
made.
need pictures.
Yeah, what does
Oh,
furry
we had
pants?
them.
What does
We-
furry pants mean?
So we.
I have them.
We actually made outfits for the Southside Parade, and so I went and bought this like furry fabric that you would see from like disco pants or something, like furry boots,
Mhm.
right?
Like what color?
Oh, they were neon green.
Green.
Neon
Everything was
green.
green.
We actually
Like
submitted
neon.
our.
really long shag.
Oh
type
yeah,
of-
Okay.
oh yeah, and we actually
Wow.
submitted our photo to WGN's. There was like a contest. We were like,
Did you win?
no, we didn't.
No.
No.
We should have.
So yeah, it
Yeah,
was.
he said it then, and I said it right afterwards.
What color are your furry pants?
I had a skirt. It was also green.
Okay.
Was it
green.
furry skirt?
Yes.
And this is
Absolutely.
St. Patrick's Day, which is why
Yes.
it's green.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Does
And
he get down on a knee? How does this go?
No, I mean, it was the
Oh, boy.
cross-eyed,
Was it like, I love you, man?
Yeah, like, I love you. And so I said it back, and, it was something I had been feeling, but, kind of was waiting it out a little bit because it was literally a month after we met. So it was really fast. Like that just
Wow.
felt really
Yeah,
quick
that
for
was
me.
fast.
And then I think the next day I was like, do you remember what you said? He was like, that I love you. And I was like, okay, you do.
Bonus.
Yeah.
When? How long from there till you guys get engaged?
Long
It
time.
was a long time. We didn't get engaged until 2010,
11?
11,
Is
2011.
that 3 years?
It was almost, no, it was,
3.5 years. Yeah.
It was like 3.5 years.
It's interesting. It feels like it was longer just because we had moved a couple different places. We moved to Buffalo Grove and
Hold on. How long until you guys live together?
A year and a half.
Year and a half.
Oh, okay. There we go.
Yeah.
And you guys each had to leave. Well, for sure, you, Josh, had to leave your mom.
We moved in together in Buffalo Grove.
Okay. How did your mothers take that?
My mom was excited because she loves him. Like I always say, if we ever get divorced, like he will be invited to holidays before I will. So she was just really excited because she knew that I had found someone really special. And I think she was excited to get me out of the house.
I had the complete opposite.
Oh,
I had the
yeah.
complete opposite. It was like mama's little babies leaving home, and there was like that attachment on her side. We definitely had some boundaries that had to be set.
Oh, yeah.
But she was happy. She was happy. It was like a kid going off to college. Oh,
The
boy.
cord was really
Yeah.
hard to cut.
She wanted to visit every day.
Yeah.
So you guys, a year and a half, you start living together, right?
Mhm.
Yep.
And then another year and a half before you get engaged.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what? Why did it take so long?
We had this talk a lot. I think I mentioned before I had been in a relationship. I was actually engaged previously
Oh,
at a
okay.
really young age. And I had been cheated on, and it was a really horrible ending to everything. He had also been in a 3-year relationship that was very serious as well.
Mhm.
And, just the person wasn't who, he thought that she was type of thing. So we were both very skeptical of like that big commitment step because we had both kind of been burned in the past.
Mm.
And we had a talk early on that neither one of us wanted to rush into anything. And it's funny I say that, but we were saying I love you in a month,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
Yeah. But
I love you. Let's move in.
But
but
you had,
let's
you
slow it
had all the
down here.
components. All the components are there.
yeah, but we weren't going to take that next really serious step until we were both like 155% sure.
Yeah.
Did you get any pressure from family?
Yes.
Yes.
My family.
Your
My
fam-
family was not so much like pressured. They were just more curious, like started to get a lot more questions about relationships and, oh, how is this going? By the way, you guys have been together for a couple of years now. what's next for you?
going
And so
on
they
with
were
that?
just
Right.
they were just really interested in our relationship. So pressure, I don't know about pressure necessarily.
Indirect.
Indirect, absolutely.
My mom's the queen of that
Oh, boy.
indirect pressure.
Oh boy.
And the little, throwing out the little questions like, hey, so where's that ring? And, she thinks it's a joke, but we know it's not.
Right.
Type of thing.
Right.
Do you know what her concern was?
I think she didn't want what had happened to me last time to happen again, for me to be like totally in with someone and then it not turn out the way that we all thought it would. I
You
think
said
that
you
was
were
her
young.
fear.
How old were you?
I think when that relationship ended, I was 22, almost 23.
Okay, yeah, that's very young.
And I had started dating him when I was 19, I think.
Okay.
And a very similar age for me. I think I was 21 or 22. And it was like a 3-year relationship for me too. That was right about 23. Yeah.
So another thing you guys kind of share,
Mhm.
and are relate to each other on.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great.
How did that huge relationship violation change your expectations or some of the things that you need in relationships?
That relationship, I think, taught me what I would and would not put up with. I think a lot of people, when you look back at a relationship that ended that way, there were signs
Mhm.
and you just refused to acknowledge them. And so once I was out of that situation, I was like, okay.
How did you find out?
I actually found out because I had that woman's intuition and I checked his email and he
AOL.
No, it was his school email. Yeah. It was a long distance
Yahoo.
relationship for part of it. He was away at school about 3 hours away.
Okay.
And I just had this feeling that something was up. And I checked his email and there was a series of emails from a couple of people that just that was the proof I needed.
Was it going on for
Pretty
quite a
much
bit?
our whole relationship.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So do you guys have access to each other's social media, emails,
Yep.
all that stuff?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes, we do. That was
Yay, we love that.
Yeah, that's good.
We don't have like
Transparency.
the shared page or anything.
Right.
We have a shared email.
we have
a shared email and,
yes.
and a calendar that's
Yeah.
shared. So
Yeah.
we both know what's
Yeah.
going on.
Right. But
Yeah.
not like a shared profile on social media.
No, it's not like Josh and Steph.
Right.
But we did exchange passwords and stuff. I was always very upfront by I had been burned and I had trust issues and
Right.
you're going to accept them or you're not. And, I'm going to trust you as much as I can, but we're going to need to work on this together to some degree.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And we did. We had some bumps in the road,
Mm-hmm.
but we learned from them and we kind of came out stronger on the other side of it, I think.
Unfortunately, it's a really common experience. I think as when we're young girls, especially, depending on the influence of our fathers and your father had passed,
Right.
it's hard for us to know what to really expect. And you kind of get this idea that, well, this person likes me, maybe there's nobody else.
Yeah.
And you put up with a lot more than we
Mhm.
should. And I think that's an important part of your story, that I think women do have to get to that place where, what is hurtful to us becomes more important than being loved.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a big learning experience. And in the moment, you don't know why you're going through it.
Mhm.
But at the other end of it, you're like, and this is why that happened.
Yeah.
Well, we're running into those difficulties now with social media and electronics and,
Mhm.
how we're able to connect with the world, and past relationships and all of that, instantaneously. And, it is
And
something
privately.
and privately.
Mhm.
And that is becoming a huge challenge with couples these
Mhm.
days,
Absolutely.
and, it's happening so fast and we're not able to actually keep up with that. And so having those boundaries and being able to set those boundaries within a relationship are really key.
Yeah. And I think having the self-esteem to set boundaries it's really hard.
Yeah.
It's hard to say, hey, this is okay or this is not okay.
Mhm.
Like you said, you're like, I have trust issues. Maybe you just have higher standards.
Right.
because You don't want to get hurt.
Because I'm not going to deal with a cheater.
Right. Maybe that's not a trust issue.
Yeah.
Right.
Maybe that's okay.
So how did you guys get engaged?
Oh boy. Oh, okay.
It's the best story ever.
This is the best story
Oh.
ever. So we were going to get engaged when we moved into our house. That was my plan. Had to push it off a little bit. And so I wanted to take Stephanie back to where we met. But I had held this whole plan.
Online.
The
Starbucks, according to everybody else.
Right,
There
right.
you go.
Starbucks. And I had this big plan in my head. I was like, okay, I'm going to sit her down in the chair outside because it was a beautiful day out. And I was like, I'm going to put the ring on the straw and bring it out to her. And that was my plan. And so I was like, wake up, and I'm really nervous about all of this.
How did you get the ring? And did you ask anyone, or did anyone know?
I actually had the ring made downtown. Only a few people knew. I actually asked her parents. I actually asked her mom and her stepdad permission.
Very
so I
nice.
did.
How did that go?
Traditional.
At that point, because Stephanie and I had been together for so long and I was really close, like I'm really big into family. And so I was really close with them. So it was a very easy conversation, but still nerve wracking.
Sure.
like, you know, definitely chest pumping a little bit.
Did you just tell her, I got to go out and get some dog food. I'll be back in a little bit, and go over to her mom's house?
And actually, I think you were, because at that point we had a little bit of different schedules, work schedules, where it was like a Saturday and she was at work. So I was like driving back from just getting the ring. So I just picked it up and I went over to her parents' house. I was like, can I? And I just like opened this box and they lost it. Right. And so it was definitely a fun experience. And so how I actually asked her was completely different than what I had planned altogether. Because we were where we're living and that Starbucks is far away from us. It was like, hey, can you wake up and I want to go to Guitar Center, right? And I was trying to get her to come with me, but it's all the way in back at Highland Park. And so I was like, will you want to come to Guitar Center with me? And she's like, no.
No. Why would I want to go to Guitar Center?
I'm like,
it's a Saturday morning. Like,
I'm
no.
like,
There's nothing there for me.
Well, how about we go see your parents, right? I'm just like trying to come up with something. Like, what else am I going to do? How am I going to get her over there? So on the way, I'm like, do you want to go to Starbucks? And she's like, no, I want to go get breakfast. I'm like,
well, they have breakfast sandwiches.
I'm like, that's what I was saying. I'm like, let's go get some breakfast sandwiches. She's like, no, we need to get breakfast. So we go to breakfast at
Sweet Tomatoes.
In
They have breakfast there?
They did
did.
It was like a weekend brunch.
Yeah.
They
type
did
of
brunches,
thing.
yeah.
Okay.
So I'm sitting at breakfast at this point. I'm like, how am I going to get her to Starbucks? This isn't going to happen because she's going to leave here and be
I
like,
really need a latte.
yeah, not happening. So I'm like freaking out. So I just take the ring and I put it underneath a napkin. I just put it under a napkin, right?
Your face is
Right.
priceless.
And so,
Yeah.
So I'm like, well, this is not really the way that I really pictured this, right?
Well, I had gotten up to like get her drink refill, and I come back and there is a ring just sitting on the table. And I looked at it and I probably can't swear on this, but I dropped some F-bombs. I was like, what the F is that? And he's like, what do you think it is? And I said, no, like, what the F is that? And he's like, what do you think it is? And I'm like, are you effing serious? At Sweet Tomatoes?
At Sweet Tomatoes. Uh-huh.
And then he's like, well, will you? And I'm like, well, yeah. So I still joke that he never actually technically asked.
Apparently, you didn't ask your mother either.
We both got the same proposal.
And this is, it really kind of outlines our entire relationship. It is so just spontaneous all the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it was so nerve-wracking, and I'm like, I just got to do this now, and I'm not going to be able to go by plan. And for whatever reason, I was like, it has to be today. Why did it have to be that day? I didn't have any reason. I was just so nervous. And so it was.
Did you
Tomatoes.
decided the whole ring thing all by yourself?
Yes.
Like you didn't know what she wanted. How'd you know her ring size?
How did I know your
I
ring
feel like
size?
I dropped hints.
Yeah, what was going on for you?
We had a conversation at one point where I was like, I'm ready. Are you ready? And he had kind of set these guidelines of, well, let's move into the house first. Well, let's see what it's like, 6 months after being in the house. And it was just kind of like always this,
There's
goal.
a milestone. You have to
that
hit,
we had
right?
to hit. And at one point I remember I said to him, and I said, just so you know, I'm not going to be with someone for 5 years and not have a commitment. I mean,
it was like 4.5.
It literally. Yeah. He had like a calendar that he was checking it off on.
Was there ever a
Taking
time
it
like
to
you
the
thought
wire.
maybe this is it?
Yes. Yeah. It's so funny because he can be very, very romantic. And then that was the proposal I got, which threw me off. But there was one time, it was one of our anniversaries. It was like a 2-year anniversary or something. And he actually had me do a scavenger hunt to a hotel where I walked into a room filled with balloons that had notes attached to the bottom of them with reasons why he loved me. And I remember calling my best friend and I was like, oh my God, you won't believe what is he doing? I don't even understand. And she's like, he's going to propose. And I was like, oh, he might. And so, nope, that wasn't it.
Sweet tomatoes.
Sweet tomatoes all the way.
Tomatoes was
under
the
a
one.
napkin
Yep.
next to the bacon.
Yep. Pretty much.
I don't think they have bacon there. It's vegetarian.
I don't
right?
know. Whatever.
I don't even remember. I just remember a ring sitting on the table.
Did you get down on one knee or?
No, I didn't even do that.
Nothing.
I was
Look at that.
so just, I reached across the table and I just said,
I mean, he was white. He was sweating. He was like,
well, yeah, she gets that. She's like, what's wrong with you? And I'm like, just giving her a blank stare, right?
And then I looked down and I was like, that's when the F-bomb started.
What were you thinking when you saw her response?
I was like, oh, is she going to say yes? Like, because she kept dropping F-bombs. And I'm like, okay, well, are we getting to the point here or what now? Because now I've done the hardest part of what at least I felt like was the hardest part at that point in time.
Now
And
I'm worried.
Now I'm worried.
She's still dropping F-bombs and I don't know what to do.
But I felt a sense of relief and a sense of like the next chapter. It felt like I was really kind of closing out that portion of our relationship. Not that I'm forgetting it, but it was a very transitional period for me and for us and how I was really approaching our relationship and kind of thinking more longer term for our future. So it was such a happy moment for me.
Mhm.
And it really kind of brought us even more closer together.
Yeah.
You were forging.
I was forging.
Forging in fire.
I was forging in fire.
With tomatoes.
Yeah.
You know, actually what's interesting is you guys are podcast number 36, but I don't think we have heard an engagement that has been like this outlandish, you know, in the middle of Soldier Field and, you know, balloons were released and doves, you know, were like released. No, we haven't heard that at all. Actually, it's actually been more like spontaneous or blundered or whatever, you know, and that's really, and including ours, was very spontaneous too. Right?
I was working at Home Depot and came home and
I was working at the hospital and she sent me a bouquet of flowers just randomly. And I said to
did I say hugs and kisses on all my pink parts?
I think so. We'll delete that.
That's an edit.
Right. But I think I told like the staff, I'm like, I think I'm going to propose to her tonight. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And it was just like that.
It was just like that.
Yeah.
But you did go with Alec. I had a son.
I did ask.
And he went
Yes.
and got diamonds with him, right? And you designed the ring.
Yeah. Downtown.
So it was planned to a certain
Jewelers Row.
And you asked,
Jewelers
and you
Row.
asked my dad.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And then I asked your parents, you know, so I had that all set up and everything, but and you know, asking the parents.
Oh, yeah.
Parents going, yeah. Yeah, I remember that. But you know what's interesting? I was thinking when you were talking about that is you actually have to start your engagement off with a lie because I don't remember what I told you in order to go see your parents.
Right.
And
we
to
need
go
dog food.
Right. I was
know.
like, I don't know.
Works for us, right?
I got to go out for a little bit. I don't know why.
I've got errands to run. Don't worry about it. It's fine.
You had to take Alec downtown. You had to go to my
Yeah.
parents. Yeah.
That's a lot of lying.
Yeah.
Wow.
It just shows your love.
It's good lying, I
It's
guess.
like Santa Claus.
And Easter
It's
Bunny.
basically a therapeutic fib, right?
Yeah.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
Right.
Oh, I like that.
yeah.
Let's quote that.
Therapeutic fib.
We're gonna borrow that from you.
So how long were you guys engaged?
14 or 16 months.
Let's see. We got engaged in May.
So you were not married within 5 years.
I can't remember if we were or
We
not.
got engaged in May and then we got married the next September.
Yeah. I don't know. Timelines.
5 to 9. So
They don't matter anymore. He made the deadline. That's all that counts.
How'd you guys decide September? Was that important?
No, so I actually had a dream that we got married September 22nd. And I didn't even know if it was what day of the week it was. And I woke up and I looked at the calendar and it was a Saturday. And I was like, how does September 22nd sound? And he was like,
Okay.
that works.
Yeah, it works. That's
Sounds
great. Let's
good.
do it.
And so we found a venue and everything around that date.
And we love the fall.
Yeah,
so
we
it's
do love
like
the fall.
it was our season.
Yeah.
For sure.
So you guys get married, and then what happens? Where do you guys go from there?
Nothing changes.
Isn't that the best? It
get
seems like
married.
it's going to be.
It's literally, I mean, we did everything backwards according to like regular standards.
What do you mean?
We bought a house before we were engaged.
Okay.
You know, we did everything that you would typically do in like reverse. So for us, it was,
Oh, that's interesting. We didn't know that you bought a house before you got engaged.
Yes.
So that's like a legal commitment.
yes.
Yes.
Before the legal commitment.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Really?
A financial commitment.
A financial commitment. Yeah.
Yeah.
So like, oh my gosh, how does that happen?
So that happened because I was under the impression at work that things were going to go a little bit different, and I was planning for something financially.
uh-huh.
So my whole desire was to propose the day we moved in the house initially.
Right. Okay.
So I had to pivot, and I was like, "What's the next best thing?" Well, sweet tomatoes, right? No,
Sweet-
obviously.
Fair
not
enough.
How
sweet
long
tomatoes.
from
But
moving in and getting engaged?
we moved in October, and it was May.
October, what year?
2010.
2010,
Same with us.
Yeah.
October, and then May
No,
of 2011.
no.
No.
Ours was 2009. Sorry.
Yeah.
Oopsie.
2009. Right.
Timelines.
But
it's okay.
October 15th.
Right. Okay. So did you guys talk about that then? That you're
Yes.
entering into this financial commitment together?
So we, again, I think a learning experience from my previous relationship
Mhm.
of not being dependent on someone. We actually went into our home with him only being on the title.
Mm.
And we had an agreement that for the financial part, like, you know, he took the brunt of most of it. And that if things didn't work out, we kind of had to talk of like furniture wise, what would be whose, you know, how we would work the mortgage. We had that talk up front because I said, if we're going to go into this and we're not married and I don't have a commitment, I need to protect myself too.
You got to be able to walk away.
100%.
But
you-
we're a team, right?
Yeah.
So it was like that was our entire relationship. Is everything is joint decisions.
Mhm.
Like you were asking, like passwords to emails and social
Mhm.
media and things
Right.
like that.
What type of tile? What kind of cabinets?
it's
Yeah,
every
we did all that fun
every
stuff.
decision,
Yeah.
right?
How did you feel about that, Josh, that you had to kind of prove yourself?
You know, I don't look at it as proving myself. I just looked at it as being myself. And if that wasn't going to be enough, or if that wasn't going to be accepted, I was going to accept whatever that outcome was going to be, right? So for me, it was I show and appreciate Stephanie in so many different ways that if that was not good enough at that time, so for me it was let's do this, and if we can really get over this next step, we're here for a long time, right? And again, for me it was also a challenge because I was depending on something that didn't actually pan out the way that I had thought it would with work. So it kind of pushed things off. So yeah, it was the whole process, right?
Mhm.
From meeting each other to begin with to up to engagement. It was a process of learning.
Did you
each
have a
other.
feeling
Mhm.
about her not being on the title?
At that time, I didn't have a feeling about it. I wasn't in either direction.
Mhm.
It was just, I'll take this on. And it wasn't until a couple years ago, no, about a year and a half ago, we actually started to plan even more for our future, right? So we've got things put together. And so we actually moved Stephanie on as
On title.
Mhm.
title of
Okay.
the house. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because now I want that.
Well, yeah, right.
Now I'm protecting myself in another way.
Sure.
And then we were just protecting us, right? And
Right.
so it's
Mhm.
more things that we can continue to do that. It's huge for us.
I kind of like that because I think one thing that is lost a lot today is women are so independent and so, self-sufficient that there's not almost that like, what does it mean to be a man and a woman? And to have that type of chemistry,
Yeah, and it's interesting. So how was marriage when we got married? Stephanie went back to school.
Mm.
So it was,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, we've been together for this long, not married. We're going to get married and bye. I'm going to go to school.
That's a lot of
Right?
time away, right?
Yeah. So the whole bye thing obviously tells you that he felt like he
That's
kind
how
of
he
lost
felt.
me
Sure.
at that time.
were you
Sure.
working and going to school?
I was.
Yeah.
I was working full time. I was working 10, 11-hour days. And then I was coming home. I was studying. I was writing papers. I mean, there was a time where we didn't see each other often at all. And so I think that that's been something in our relationship. I mean, I've got my undergrad and then I went and I finished my master's. So it's been 5.5 years.
5.5 years.
Right.
Pretty much straight on of this. So it definitely took a lot of work on both of our parts to maintain our relationship and the connection that we have. And we've talked about this before. Like, we definitely lost some of that connection along the way in different parts, but neither one of us ever stopped trying. And I think that that's the important part of it.
How is that different for each of you?
I felt like like Stephanie said, we lost ourselves a little bit, and it was really hard to find time just to get together. She was so committed and so involved with her school, and it showed. I mean, she was head of her class, right? And in both her undergrad and her graduate. So she was so committed, and I just was along for the ride. Like, however I can support you, we're going to do this just like we've done this before. Just the tenacity was just inspiring.
But you're like alone.
I was, but I found hobbies, right? Got involved in just video games and music and just all sorts of different things. Woodworking, forged in fire.
Yep. Is that where you guys ran into those bumps that you guys were alluding to earlier?
I think we have definitely a couple, with trying to just figure it out, right? Like, there's no manual for any of this stuff.
Right.
And, when you start to feel disconnected, how do you get that connection back? There's no,
Great question.
One way to do that. So I think it involved a lot of communication, which we've always prided ourselves on. Like, if we have an issue going on, it's really funny. Actually, our way when we're mad at one another is writing letters.
Oh, like written.
Yeah.
Emails, letters.
How did you guys develop that?
If I really had to think about it, that's probably how we initially started talking. That's how we met.
Oh, yeah.
We met in that space, right? And so a lot of our initial conversations started that way. Written, you can only interpret so much with written. When you're in front of somebody, it's a lot of physical, and the words can mean different things. And so we just found a way to communicate through writing to at least initially start it so that we can have a conversation. It's always been a very effective way when one of us is challenged, really.
Or mad.
Just
mad.
Really mad at you?
What was the most difficult letter each of you got?
We did have a pretty big bump in the road before we got engaged. This was probably 1.5 years into our relationship. And you talked earlier about like social media and how that can be an issue for couples.
Right.
It was for us. So there was a situation where there were some conversations that were happening on his end that weren't appropriate. And I found them. And that was almost a deal breaker for the whole relationship.
Yeah.
And you expressed that in a letter?
I expressed it in a lot of different ways.
All of the
I think at
above.
first it started with a phone flying across the room.
Yeah, in his head. Yeah, there was a phone.
What was it like for you? Was that a sliding into something you didn't know what you were doing thing?
At that time, I think it was just, I don't really know. I don't really know why that desire was there to just talk to other people. Yeah, it was a challenge to deal with that as a couple. Like, how are we going to deal with this? We have committed love to each other, right? We said, I love you.
We live together.
We live together. And so for whatever reason, it did make us a lot stronger. As odd as that may sound, it did.
But was the contact all social media, virtual?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Phone.
Oh, well, okay.
Right.
So yeah, phone and social media. There was no interactions with people. There was no seeing them. It wasn't to that degree, no.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely something we've run into multiple times, actually. And, many times it's because there is, this disconnect that's happening in the relationship, or there's increased stress in the relationship. Devon Franklin, he wrote a book called The Truth About Men. He talks a lot about this dichotomy between the dog and the master within men, right? And that there is this search and connection and need for attention, right? And when men are kind of challenged in that way, when they are in that place of being kind of low energy, that they seek that energy, they seek that tension. And sometimes it'll come in the form of other women or come in the form of other vices and things like that. So it is always, from his perspective, a constant struggle for men.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, I was going to say, I had always thought that the situation was because, and I look at it again, like how we started, right? Like we had profiles and we had social media pages and we were both talking to multiple people. So there was a lot of attention.
Sure.
And now you're a year and a half. It's not, honeymoon stage anymore. We're living together. It's real deal.
Right.
And some of that initial spark and excitement goes away.
Yep.
And
Naturally.
so that is just, to me, that was like him getting that feeling back.
Right.
But through the wrong channels.
Mm-hmm.
And I think for whatever reason, men kind of don't have a clue about the stuff that shouldn't be appropriate.
I
because
would agree with that.
It feels
Absolutely.
good.
Who's
It's like
teaching us, right?
Right. Like, do you go through McDonald's because you're hungry, or do you go to Jewel and buy some food and go home and prepare it and cook it, and it's much healthier and long term feels great? But I don't know. McDonald's is right here.
Yep.
Yeah. And yeah. And I think there is, and he talks about that in the book about, a woman's responsibility to kind of hold a guy more accountable. And I know with you too, there's things that you didn't know.
Right.
And like, no, that woman's doing some stuff over there that
not okay.
Not okay.
That's not okay. It's not appropriate.
Yeah.
And for some reason you have blinders on, you're not able to actually see it.
Yeah.
So the fact that you guys were able to navigate that early on, is a huge thing. I mean, we have couples that coming in, they've been married for like 20 years and now they're facing it, that it's been happening for 5-10 years in the relationship.
Yeah.
And you can imagine how devastating that is at that point.
Oh,
right?
yeah. I mean, and I'll say again, I came into this relationship knowing I had boundaries and was very straightforward with what I will and won't accept. So in my previous relationship, turning a blind eye, I was not going to do that this time.
Right.
And he got the wrath of it.
But I think that is part of, and he talks about that in the book as well, that because women are on the receiving end of that dog type of behavior, that we do have to have that type of self-esteem that says this is unacceptable. Because the type of woman that is acceptable to is probably not someone you want to be in a long-term relationship with.
Right.
Right. And then we did go to,
we went to couples
therapy.
counseling. Yeah.
Couples counseling.
Okay.
Yeah, we did.
Before we were even engaged.
Yep.
Oh, wow. Okay,
we were
great.
really I really wanted to show to work towards repairing this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Taking any steps and measures to rectify that.
Right.
And so whatever it took, right? We were committed.
It seems like that is a really big waking up moment for men, and when we have couples come in, it's usually because she's not happy.
Yeah.
More than not, like 90%, a lot.
Yeah.
And the guy's kind of clueless. And then he's like, he gets this aha moment, like, oh my God, I've been hurting this person who loves me, cares for me, has been doing all these things that I'd never want to leave and who I don't want to hurt. And
that I didn't
even
realize and I was not taught.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's like this awakening, as you said, the aha moment. Right.
Yeah.
Right. So you guys get married and pressure for kids?
From my family.
Yeah.
From your family.
I mean, my mom has talked about grandchildren from me since like the day we met. Even before, in previous relationships when I was really young.
Yeah.
She's always, my mom's life goal is to be a grandmother, essentially. So we got a lot of pressure from my mom, not so much from his family. We went into this relationship saying we didn't know if we wanted children or not, even at 24 years old.
Okay.
So you guys talked about that up front.
We did.
It was quite a bit. It was a lot of conversations about it, actually, even before we were engaged, about like, what do we really want? Do we want? Do we not? Do we want to leave our options open? And so, yeah, we've had quite a bit of conversation about it over the years.
A lot.
So you guys knew that you were kind of hesitant before you even met each other about having children?
Yeah. I was. I've always been. Part of that is the passing of my father at such a young age that I'm thinking, well, that's going to happen to me. How am I going to leave a child behind like that? And so part of that is because of that experience that I had. Part of it too was I didn't know if that's a commitment that I want to make in my life. 24 years old and even at 35.
Yeah, and I think we had talked a lot about it, and at one point I was always kind of like, I was never the girl who was like playing mommy with her baby dolls, and I was never the one that was like, I'm going to be a stay-at-home mom and I'm going to have 3 kids and blah blah blah. Like, that was just never me.
Yeah.
And so I knew that his feelings were pretty set on it, and going into the relationship I was kind of like, yeah, I don't really see it right now, but I don't know what the future could hold. And at one point we did have to have a really serious conversation where, you know, he basically said, I'm not going to have children. I don't want them. And you need to make sure that that's something you're okay with.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I really took time to like dig deep within myself and try to figure that out. And, I told him, the one constant that I see in my future is you. You know, I don't necessarily see children. And if that doesn't happen, I'm going to be okay.
Where in the relationship was this?
This was probably 2 years in.
Okay.
Yeah,
Oh,
because it got to the point where it was like, okay, we've been doing this, we were living together.
Yeah.
Like, if we are going to take this next step, we need to be on the same page or this is never going to work.
Right.
So you didn't feel like an internal calling. And so then him deciding that was fine with you because
it kind of
being with him
solidified.
is more important.
Yeah. And I think as a young woman too, you don't want to have those thoughts because there's a stigma associated with that, right?
Yeah, right.
Like, we're taught, you grow up, you get married, you have kids.
Right.
And for me, I never had that urge, but I don't know that I ever voiced that.
Mm-hmm.
And then kind of knowing him in our relationship, I think that gave me the opportunity to feel confident in that decision that I had already pretty much made.
I wonder how many women actually feel that way, but had kids anyways. And then
I bet there's a lot.
Really struggled with that resentment and
regret.
Yeah.
That's a hard regret.
That's a tough one.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no going back on that.
I mean,
No.
both of my kids were oopses.
Mhm.
I kind of felt the way that you did. I came from a huge family, and I mean, I love my kids. I'm glad I had them, but I was not like Susie Homemaker.
Yeah.
At all.
Yeah.
That's nobody's surprised about that. So Josh, for you, yours was really like an emotional thing. Like, I don't know if I can handle this.
Yeah, there was growing up, so my dad had a heart attack at 39, his first heart attack at 39.
That's really young.
He had a second
Yeah.
heart attack at 49.
Wow.
So growing up, my mom was like, they say that you're going to have something happen to you like that 10 years younger than your dad.
Oh
Wow.
my God.
Whoa, what?
Growing up with that fear?
Wow.
Okay, so at 29 years old or 30 years old, like, this is going to happen to me?
Wow.
And then you're like a young potential mom, and you go through what your mom went through?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was actually like along those lines. His 30th birthday was a really emotional event for him.
Yeah.
Because
I bet.
he
Yeah.
grew up not thinking he was going to make it to 30.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's quite a fear to be burdened with at such a young age. Yeah.
30 years old, New Year's Eve, we're sitting at home.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, we wanted to do stuff. We kind of tried to plan it, but I was like, I don't really want to this year. And so it was.
Let me just survive this year.
It was, I didn't think this was going to happen. And I don't know if I want to celebrate this because this could also mean that it's closer to the end for me.
Wow.
I mean, that's the way I interpreted it.
I just am remembering something about my life. It was in high school, and they had you do a timeline of your life.
Mm-hmm.
And I had myself die at 30 in high school.
Wow.
And I remember that year being like, am I going to make
Right,
it?
like,
Am I gonna make this?
And I do
Get
think it was
through
a very
this?
transformative year. Was that a transformative year for you as well?
Yes, very much so. It kind of across the board, just my outlook just on everyday situations, being definitely more open-minded. And so it has changed so many aspects. Absolutely. How it's changed my thought on children, though, I'm still in that set mindset that I think I see, if, like Stephanie said, I see the future with you. It's okay if that is an option later, but right now, no. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so we just keep pushing forward with that.
So you guys have completely opened up your hearts to animals. And I know you guys have been through a lot with that.
Yes.
Can you guys talk about your experiences with that?
My experience as a pet owner over the years has been very emotional and very interesting. One thing I want to bring up about Stephanie and I is that someone is always the rock in a really hard situation. And you don't verbalize it. You just know, right? You don't, who breaks down first, right? It's just, it kind of naturally happens.
So, did you tell your mothers that, you know what, we're not going to have kids? And what was that reaction?
The reaction on from my mom was she was supportive. There was no pushback. Again, I don't know if that's part of the situation that happened with her husband, my dad, but she was supportive of me in that and wanted to make sure that Stephanie was on board. Like for a while, she had a hard time believing that Stephanie was in that mindset. She thought she's going to get baby syndrome. I want to have a baby. I want to have a baby. I want to have a baby. So she just was more, are you sure that she's sure? Right. But very supportive of it. She is a grandma, right? I do have two sisters my one sister has two girls and a boy. Mm-hmm. So she is a grandma. And now that I'm 35 and I've seen those kids grow up, my mom's like, yeah, I'm kind of done.
Right.
So
it's a lot of work.
she had the grandma phase. So no pushback really. And she was supportive.
Okay.
Totally different story on my end. Totally. I really truly think that my mom just within the last year has accepted it.
Oh,
wow.
And so we're talking
took a while,
long time. Yeah. For a very long time, she thought that I was just going along with Josh.
Oh, wow.
And I said, do you not know me? Like, really?
Mm-hmm.
And I would have these conversations with her and be like, when did I ever say growing up I wanted to be a mommy? Like, what makes you think? 'Cause she's like, you've always wanted to have kids. How do you know that?
Mm-hmm.
Like, whatever told you that? And she could never answer that question. So she, even after we would have many conversations about it, and she would still say something like, are you guys going to give me a grandkid? You're 32 now. You guys, if you're going to do this, you got to do it. And it got to the point where he would actually get upset because he was like, why does she keep pressuring us when she knows what our decision is?
Mm-hmm.
So I've had to pull her aside a couple of times and just have a really straightforward conversation that you need to stop. Like, this is not okay. This is our life, our decision.
I mean, there were points too when I even approached your mom and was like, why you keep pushing so hard for this?
Yeah.
And you're not talking to me, you're talking to her. And then I hear it secondhand. So it was tough on that side. And because we are so close as a family on both sides of our family, which is something that was a struggle growing up. We weren't close on both sides of the family. I really wanted to make sure that was always top of mind in our relationship and our family dynamic, right? So I approached her on it, and I wasn't rude about it, but I just wanted to say, why can't you talk to me about it too? Hear my side of it. Because it was very much like you said, your mom thought that you were just going along for the ride on that.
Yeah.
Did you guys ever do anything permanently so you cannot have children?
No, I've had an IUD. It's a 10-year IUD put in when I was 26 or 27. And even my OB was like, are you sure? Like, this is something that, like, it could affect your fertility in the future. Right. There are side effects.
In 10 years, those are your childbearing years.
Right. And he's like, are you sure? Like, you really need to think about this. And I was like, yes, like, I wouldn't be here if I wasn't sure. And it's something that is removable. And I think in some way we've always kept the door cracked, right? That because you can't predict the future.
Right.
So, I mean, I've heard of people who, when they were 39, were like, I gotta be a parent. Something in me is just changed and I gotta be a parent. Mm-hmm. And we don't know. That could happen to one of us. It could happen to both of us. There's no way of knowing that. So we don't have any permanent measures that are in place, but long-term ones.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
If it happens, it happens. That kind of thing.
Yes and no. I mean, we're taking, protection against it happening. Right. But, if something were to happen, it's kind of like, okay, in my mind, like, well, that was supposed to happen then.
Right.
Yep.
So.
Yeah. Yep. We even talked about potentially, even if that's something that we really wanted to do, possibly adoption in the future too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because it's part of our dynamic, right?
We save animals.
We save animals. There are, I mean, there's stories out there, right? I mean, there's so much on the news that we've seen even recently. So that is an option too for us, right?
Right.
Other avenues to fulfill that.
To fulfill that need or that desire that we may have sometime in the future.
I think we were pretty young when we made that decision not to have any more kids.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we were pregnant when we got married, and
Mm-hmm.
within a couple of years, you had a vasectomy. You were
So you really
for
made
sure
the decision.
less
Yeah.
than
So
30.
we really
you were
made
under
that
30
decision.
when you did that.
Yeah. So we had started the company,
Mm-hmm.
and we had decided that, we could either put all our energy and effort into building the company,
Mm-hmm.
or we can have another child.
Yeah.
And it had to be either or,
Yeah.
because it wouldn't be fair to the child for us to try to do both.
Right.
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 Yeah, like you can have a kid or a life.
Well,
Right.
and truthfully,
And you
though,
can give more to the ones you have.
we've
you know.
looked at that and we're like, we enjoy our lifestyle.
Yeah.
Right. So,
Mhm.
I jokingly, I call us dinks, double income, no kids.
Yeah.
So I'm like, the dink lifestyle is where it's at. Like we have disposable income that we can utilize for trips. Now, granted, 3 dogs keeps us from going on as many trips as we would like. So we kind
Right.
of screwed ourselves in that way. But, we can do the things that we want. We don't have to worry about that. And I think throughout the last probably 8 years or so, all of our friends have had kids. We're pretty much the only people that we know who don't have kids who are our age. And we've seen what they go through and what they are going through and the challenges that they face. And sometimes we just look at each other and we're like,
It doesn't
this
look
is
lovely.
why. Like, this is why we have dogs.
Right.
Because it's just, it's the lifestyle, I think. And I don't know if we're both selfish or what, but it's just, we don't want to change that.
And the spontaneity, I think,
Mhm.
it is a big piece to that too. While you can be spontaneous when you have children, by all means, right? But just the waking up on a random Sunday, let's go to a Sox game, right? Or let's drive up to Milwaukee and go to a brewery, or
go to a Cubs game.
or go.
Oh, no.
Oh.
No, we wouldn't do that.
Oh.
Boy,
We don't do that.
I'll wear my Sox gear.
That's
Okay.
another podcast.
Yeah. We could save that for after the show if you want to duke it out.
But I think we love that
Freedom.
Mhm.
freedom.
Yeah, and I think people they lose so much of that. I mean, I think that's the number one problem we see with couples is they have a baby and everything goes to the kid. Everything. And they stop hanging out and they stop investing in their relationship to the point where it's like dried up and starving.
I mean, we're 1 year after Stephanie's graduation from her master's. She graduated last May. So we are really kind of doing that connecting again, right?
Mhm.
We're getting back to what we were like before we got engaged.
Mhm.
Because we felt
Yeah.
like we lost some
Mhm.
time. We were always connected, but we even say like, how do we have fun?
Yeah, when
Yeah.
when I started having time again, I'd be like, what did we used to do for fun? Like we would have a Saturday and be like, we'd look at each other and be like, what do you want to do? And I was like, I don't know. And he'd be like, I don't know. And I'm like, well, what did we used to do? Because we used to have a lot of fun. And it's like, you almost can't even like remember
Yeah.
what it was like before that. So, I mean, I guess I would probably say that that's similar to what parents go through. And I can say from our perspective too, again, with our friends and things, not just their relationships, we've seen the issues that happen between their marriages because
Mhm.
you talk with your friends about that stuff, right? But also in their friendships. Like I know as a 35-year-old woman who doesn't have kids, I struggle with my friendships with other females who have kids because a lot of what they're doing is based around their children.
Right.
Right.
And I don't have that. And I don't have that connection with them on that level. So I struggle a lot with some of my friendships,
Right.
even because we have decided not to have
Yeah.
children.
Just that relatability piece, and they
Yeah.
can't just pick up and go.
Right.
There's just different places in life.
100%. Yeah.
Right.
And again, they're focused on their kids and they should be, right?
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
That's
right.
where they are in their life. That's the priority and that's totally fine. But I'm not there.
Mhm.
So it's
And
different.
we're kind of in the same boat. We're empty nesters,
Right.
and we're pretty young empty nesters, and so for us, the friends that do have kids, it's kind of hard for us to
Mhm.
be able to get out
Right.
and kind of socialize with them because they have They either bring in their kids,
Right.
right? Or, we're planning out months in advance
Yes.
in order to actually connect with them, right?
And we went through a similar thing. He did a 5-year doctorate program.
Mhm.
Yes, raising a child,
Our youngest was
starting
8
a business.
Yeah.
at the time. Our oldest was 18. And yeah, I had to kind of man that whole side while he's off doing that. And you had to do internships.
We'll never do that again.
No. And then, I don't even know I think it was such a relief when you graduated. I don't know if we went through what you're experiencing now, but when our kids left, we got to that.
Yeah.
Right.
Because we had so many things defining our lives. And it's so nice to have that type of freedom to do
Just
what
be
want.
you,
Yeah,
right?
It is, and
Absolutely.
we've become real homebodies. We've
Yeah.
become real
Huge.
homebodies in this journey that we've taken here, even after being in this house for almost 9 years.
Mhm.
And we enjoy our home. We've really made it our
It's our sanctuary.
Sanctuary. That's what we call
Yeah.
our house too. Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Josh, did you ever have that feeling of the legacy, the name, carrying on your last name?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And that has been the one topic of conversation from my mom, really, is she was supportive 100%, but she's like, what about the name?
Yeah.
Lots of history behind that. Some things that happened early on as a child with my dad's side of the family that, Mike, I don't really see it that way. Right. And interestingly enough, we actually even Stephanie and I talked about changing our name and combining them
Oh, really?
together.
So for me, legacy is something too,
Yeah.
because I have my father's last name.
Yeah.
And he has no other children. So for me, there was a part of me too that had that legacy want.
Yeah.
And we came very close to changing our last name, both of us, that would be a combination of both of our last names.
Why did you decide not to?
He decided.
Again, it was one of those things we were identifying. Well, we weren't identifying boundaries, but we were definitely still in that boundary stage.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't make the decision to choose not to combine our names out of probably more than anything else of just the time, truly, because we were getting married and there is a lot of changes that would have to happen on for things that I didn't even have control over, which could have complicated things. So the name and carrying it on, the legacy of that, yeah, a little bit part of me is sad that may not be an option at this point, but I've accepted that too. I'm okay with it. Challenge.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a challenge for you then, changing your name then.
It was.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was. And I'll joke, and I don't mean it, but I'll be like, don't worry, one day I'll have it again. I joke.
You still do get mail. You still do get mail with your
I do.
name on it.
I've got a couple of things that, for whatever reason, my old name is on there, and he's like, "You need to change that." I'm like, "I'm not letting go of this." Like, it's like a highlights magazine from 1983, and I'm like, I'm not changing it. This is coming to the house once a year, and it's going to have my old last name on it.
That's great. Should just frame it, right?
I might.
How do you guys deal with conflict?
Differently,
for sure. I would say that that's funny. We just had some of this actually within the last couple months,
Some
right?
conflict.
Well.
Yeah. So there was an expectation on my father-in-law got got diagnosed with prostate cancer. Okay. And seeing as how Stephanie's biological father died of skin cancer, she called me and we had a conversation when she found out.
Yeah, as soon as he got the test results back, I called him.
So it was a Saturday, I remember.
Mm-hmm.
And at this point, she's working. I'm at home. I was occupied, but I was talking to her on the way home, right? And so this was a challenge because she came home and I didn't get up. I didn't do the right thing. I didn't know it at the time. I had headphones on and I was playing a game and she comes in and then I get up. What I felt, time went by so fast and it was a half an hour. And I'm like, where are you?
I already left the house.
Where are you? So,
Wow.
oops. So we overcame it, but it was a lot of conversation. It was a challenge for us.
That was a tough one.
That was a tough one for us. Why wasn't I there for you and to support you during this hard time? For us, for you, for us as a family, for us as a whole family, our extended families, and the unknowns. So I didn't know it at the time in that instant, but I regretted it as soon as I figured out, like, oh boy, this isn't where I want to be with us. And the challenging thing in all that was the response from both of us. What do we do now? We were stuck, both of us. She was stuck with how she felt about my reaction, and then how am I going to repair this? That was hard on both of us.
That was a tough one.
And we've overcome it for sure.
We talked about it quite a few times, though. I mean, a couple of weeks worth of conversations here and there.
Do you tend to run?
I don't typically.
Okay.
I have to be in a really bad headspace to just fight or flight. I'm usually a fighter.
Yeah.
But to get out of there, I'm in a really bad headspace. So I was like, I don't even want to look at you.
Yeah.
Like, that's where I was at. I was like, if you come near me, I don't know what I'm going to do.
What were you feeling?
It was let down. It was, you have an expectation of your partner. And again, we've been together for 11 and a half years, right? So we've been through tough situations, and he's always shown up for me and shown up for me the way I need him to. That time was a really important time, and he didn't show up for me. I felt it all. So that was like, okay,
all that, like betrayal, abandonment.
It was like, are we broken? Is there something else behind him not showing up that I don't know about? You know, it just makes you kind of insecure about what's behind this.
Right.
Why is he not showing up like he usually would?
Yeah.
So it was a lot of disappointment, a lot of hurt. And he just didn't seem to get it right away. You know, when I left and I went to a restaurant and I had dinner by myself and I got margaritas and, you know, and, you know, his response to me when he initially saw that I was gone was, so what, you just left? I'm like, what? No, wrong move, buddy.
And this is all about tone, right? It's like, where did you go? That if I would have said it to you in person, it would have been, where did you go? Not even connecting the dots. Like, did you have to run out to the store real quick? Because that has happened. I don't know. And time just slipped. It went by so fast. And so I wasn't even understanding how long that duration of time was. And duration of time was really part of that, right?
I had been home for half an hour and he hadn't said one word to me.
You know, there's a book called The Way of the Superior Man, David Dida. And he says, you know, you could have a buddy, he's been your friend for like 20 years and shows up all the time. You're supposed to go out and meet him and he blows you off. And you just think, oh, he's probably forgot or he's busy. He said, but your wife, you could show up every single time for 20 years. And the second you don't
show up,
you know,
especially those important times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, you know, part of it is, you know, if you could imagine, you know, if we lived in the forest and just sleeping would be dangerous. Right. And so you hook up with someone and say, all right, you stand guard while I sleep. And then we switch. And then you wake up and, oh, he's on the video game. And a bear could have eaten you. And for women, because we are the ones that produce infants, we're hypersensitive to that. And so it's the one slip. It doesn't matter what you've done before.
Yep.
So your credibility is shot.
and I think for me too, it was another level of hard just because I don't deal with vulnerability really well. I mean, in the 11 years we've dated, he's probably seen me cry a handful of times. Like, I'm not a crier. I'm like, I deal with stuff, right? So
he wouldn't even have possibly had that on his radar that you really needed him.
He should have, because I cried on the phone to him. So that's for me what
indication
amplified
of
it.
something different now.
You knew how upset I was. You know I don't get upset, and you still didn't show up. Was for me was the biggest issue.
Do you think possibly that's what shut you down?
What shut me down?
Her emotions, and that overwhelmed you, so you kind of almost like subconsciously coped by pretending everything was fine?
I mean, part of me like was I didn't know how to react because I experienced a loss of an uncle from cancer, but it wasn't as close to home, and so we're not there, right? We got news. I don't know what that means. I don't have enough understanding of what we're dealing with. What she was dealing with is completely different. She was having an emotional reaction to news that we didn't know about. And that was what I wasn't connecting, right? I wasn't connecting with, she needs me here right now. First thought that went into my head was, what's he feeling, right? And do I need to talk to him, or do I just need to give space? Do I not need to crowd? Like, what is the right thing to do? And it was a struggle in that moment. And then the hours after, waiting, right? Not knowing, not getting response, because I knew very quickly that it was going to be a while.
Yeah, I messed up.
I messed
That
up.
was a big oopsie.
I screwed this one up.
I would imagine too, the way that your mom was more dependent and maybe not as appropriately as she should be, like where that line would be more blurry for you.
I still question it. Like what happened? Why did that happen? Where I wasn't there. Because I had said, when somebody has a hard time or is breaking down, the other person's always there. That was the one time it didn't happen for us. And really the one time that I can really think of where
truly
I wasn't there, right? It was like a aha moment. Not even an aha. It was just like, why did this happen after 10 years of being together? How did this happen? And it was a lot of conversation about how we're going to be able to get past this.
So this conflict here happened pretty recently.
Yeah, within last month.
And so is that different, the way you guys handled this conflict? Is it different than how you handled conflicts early on in your relationship?
I think this one was just to a different point of hurt. Previously, and in most situations when there's conflict, it's very, very rare that one of us yells. We typically, again, like we really, I think, pride ourselves on our communication. And again, it'll typically start with a letter. And then, when we are with one another, we'll say, do you want to talk about this now?
Right.
And we'll sit down and we just head on, right? Get it over with. Let's figure this out.
Unless cell phones are thrown at each other's faces.
Well,
yeah.
That's when I'm really mad. I throw things and I leave. But we typically will take things on. And so it's rare that one of us is at a level that we just need our space. We need to cool down, like, get away from me right now.
And I think the one thing that is really awesome about when we do deal with conflict is that by the time that we are ready to talk to one another, it is very constructive. It's not a you should have, I should have. It's how are we going to deal with this as a couple? And then we'll work on the fixing part. Like, let's talk about the situation. Let's not talk about how we're going to fix it. Let's talk about that moment. And then we'll work on how we're going to fix to make sure that that's not going to happen again. Right. And so we kind of go at it from the situation and then more broader, like preventative kind of, but you obviously don't know what's going to happen in the future, but you try to set your own boundaries and you try to set the rules of like how you're going to behave or
like
react, learn from it. Right.
So you give each other space to kind of process it first before you come together and just kind of talk about like the how and why it happened.
Yeah. And for me, I think I'm pretty reactionary just by nature. And I can very easily say things that I don't mean. So for me, I think it is important that I have a little bit of time to not just be in that emotional crisis mode where I'm just I want to hurt you like you're hurting me.
Sure.
So I think for me, especially, it's important that I have that time away when things are really difficult where I can just give myself a little more perspective on what's actually happening.
Yeah.
And it eats me alive. It does. It eats me alive because it's
he
like
hates when I leave.
It's the time, it's the no response, and it's I want to try to fix this in this very moment, but I know this isn't the right time. And that was a real test to kind of just back off and really kind of give that space And I think that really helps too, without pushing it too hard. Like, talk when we're ready to, right?
Right.
You never have to deal with that.
Never. No. I don't know what you guys are talking about.
So last question. What is it that your partner does that you know they love you?
I mean, there's not one answer. Seriously, like I think we do things for one another without it even being a thought. And I'll say, like, you know, talking about having animals or something, right? Like, we talk about our day that, like, at night I'll be like, what's your day like tomorrow? And he'll tell me. And like, so if he's got to leave early, I'm like, okay, he'll get up, I'll go downstairs, I'll feed the dogs, I'll get them out. Like, I know that he's got stuff he's got to do, and vice versa. More times than not, it's me that has to leave and he's home working. So he's taking care of everything. So I can just focus on what I need to do and get out. And I think there's a lot of those unsaid things that sometimes you can take for granted that we both do for one another that just, to me, show our love. You know, we do them naturally for one another. I think his mother and his sister once said, when we were having a holiday at our house, and they were like, it's so nice watching you two. They said, you both just, like, we were loading the dishwasher and we were working together to load the dishwasher. And they were like, it's amazing to watch you two because you two are such a team. And like, you guys just effortlessly do these things together. So I think that hit me. Like, that spoke volumes to me that we do that. And I guess that's not normal in some relationships. And to me, I just took it for granted, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that just the consistency of that too, right? It is so second nature. It's so second nature to not even ask, can you? It's, you will. Like, both of us do it to each other. Oh, you need something picked up? Like, we don't even have to ask. You kind of do it. We fill each other's we finish each other's sentences a lot.
It's gross.
We say the same words at the same time a lot. We'll be singing to a commercial at the same time that we've both heard 1,000 times. And for whatever reason, we didn't do it the last time, but we do it this time. So there's so many daily interactions. There's really a day that it's really hard for me to even think of a day that we don't smile at each other and laugh.
Yeah.
Even in those challenging times. For me, it says a lot about our relationship.
Mm-hmm.
You guys wear the same shirts, same colors.
We do have matching raincoats.
We do. From time to time, we'll wear flannel because, you know, we moved out to the country, so you have to wear flannel sometimes.
We've got cowboy boots. We've got cowboy hats. We do.
I mean, I'll tell you, in my senior living career, I actually had a couple that lived in one of the communities I lived in, or I worked in. I felt like I lived there. And they had been married for 65 years. And no joke, every day they matched. And at first I was like, that's so cute. And then I was like, that's kind of weird. But then I was like, but no, it is cute. Like, I've gone back and forth on it. But they were just so connected. It was like, it just happened for them. They both have red shirts and black pants, like whatever.
Yeah.
So we're not there yet.
We are.
But we don't even know it. And we'll show up at work, we're like, oh, we're both wearing blue again.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, oh, man.
See, you just connected.
Yeah. So, Josh and Stephanie, we want to thank you so much for being on the podcast today. You guys have such a wonderful relationship and a wonderful story, and thank you for sharing it.
Well, thanks for having us. It's
Yeah,
been a lot of
Rangy,
fun.
thank you so much. This has been fantastic and so much fun.
It is such a blast, isn't it?
It is.
You know, human beings have been sharing their stories for thousands of years to grow and to bond and to heal. And we hope that by you guys sharing your story, it's enriched your relationship and the lives of our listeners.
Thank you.
Thank you.
For all of you listening, if you have any questions or topic suggestions, again, please feel free to leave a comment or look us up online at couplessynergy.com. Until next time, synergize your life, synergize your love.
You have been listening to Couple Synergy with Dr. Ray and Jean Kedkodian. Couple Synergy was recorded, edited, and produced by Dr. Ray and Jean Kedkodian. Voiceover and music entitled Breathe and Let Go was recorded and composed by Gina Gonzalez.